For centuries, humanity was absolutely gripped by this powerful and sometimes, deadly obsession. The search for ultimate power, something hidden in the very heart of matter itself. This is the story of the alchemists.
So, what if you could turn lead into gold and live forever? I mean, come on. It's the ultimate fantasy, right? But this wasn't just a daydream. This was a question that drove some of the greatest minds in history, and, as we'll see, some of the most dangerous. It was a promise of unlimited wealth and eternal life, and people were willing to do almost anything to get it.
All right, so to really get our heads around this whole thing, we're going to break it down. We'll start with the noble dream, then see how it got twisted by some serious charlatans. Then, we'll witness its absolute horrifying conclusion in one man's life. And finally, we'll ask, what was it all for?
Okay, let's kick things off with the eternal dream. Because before alchemy became the stuff of con artists and scams, it was a genuinely serious intellectual pursuit. Seriously. It was this incredible mix of science, philosophy, and spirituality, all aimed at figuring out the deepest secrets of the universe.
And right at the heart of everything was this one legendary thing, the Philosopher's Stone. And look, it wasn't just about getting rich quick. It was about achieving perfection. The idea was it could cure the sickness of cheap metals, turn them into pure, perfect gold. And even crazier, it was supposed to cure the sickness of the human body, basically granting immortality. And you have to understand, these early thinkers, they really believed this was possible. I love this quote from the alchemist Geber. He basically compared anyone who doubted him to a little kid stuck in a tiny room, a kid who refuses to believe the whole world exists outside. To him, the skeptics weren't rational. They were just limited. They couldn't see the huge hidden truths of the world that were right there for the taking.
And man, what a cast of characters we're talking about. You've got Geber, who saw metallurgy as a kind of medicine for metals. Then there's the brilliant physician Avicenna, who somehow in between living a life of total debauchery found the time to write 7 books on the stone. And then you get these larger-than-life figures like Albertus Magnus and Thomas Aquinas. Their legends grew so big that people genuinely believed they were actual magicians, capable of changing the seasons or stopping traffic with a magic horse. Wild stuff.
But you know how it goes. Whenever there's a dream of infinite riches, the predators start circling. It was only a matter of time before this noble quest got completely hijacked by some of history's most charismatic con artists.
Okay, let's talk about Dr. John Dee. This guy is fascinating because he wasn't just a straightforward fraud. He was a genuinely respected scholar, a brilliant mathematician who also happened to believe he was talking to angels. He had this polished black stone, and his partner, a guy named Edward Kelly, would gaze into it and translate these divine messages. Messages that, surprise, surprise, always seemed to benefit Kelly.
And really, these two guys, Dee and another character, Count Cagliostro, they kind of represent the two different paths alchemy took. On one side, you have the deluded but maybe sincere scholar, Dr. Dee, who died completely broke, still chasing that divine truth. And on the other side, the pure showman, Count Cagliostro, a man who couldn't care less about truth and just wanted cash. And he got it, becoming fabulously wealthy by selling the dream.
I mean, Cagliostro's audacity was just, wow, breathtaking. He'd tell the Parisian elite that he was an old friend of Jesus Christ, that he was at the wedding in Cana. He would talk openly about his 28-year-old son, even though his own wife was only 25. It makes zero logical sense, but hey, when you're selling eternal youth, who's bothering with math? And the crazy part is, the wealthy totally bought it, literally and figuratively.
But this whole obsession, it could turn so much darker than just fraud. For one French nobleman, the desperate hunt for the Philosopher's Stone became a justification for something truly unimaginably evil.
So, let's talk about Gilles de Rais. And you have to picture this guy. He was not some shadowy creep lurking in the corners of society. He was a national hero, a comrade in arms to Joan of Arc. He was a man of immense wealth and power, right at the absolute peak of French society.
His path to ruin, it was almost tragically simple. First, he lived this life of insane extravagance. We're talking a personal bishop, a whole troupe of actors on payroll. Of course, he completely burned through his fortune. When the king himself had to step in and forbid him from selling off any more of his land, he got desperate and turned to alchemy as a quick fix. And when that failed, well, that's when he turned to sorcery. He became convinced that to get what he wanted from the devil, he had to make the ultimate sacrifice.
The price he believed the devil demanded was this number: nearly 100. Nearly 100 children. Over a period of just 3 years, kids from the villages around his castles, they just vanished.
They were lured inside, where they were sacrificed in these horrific demonic rituals, all in this insane, desperate bid to find the secret to making gold.
And his own confession from the trial, it reveals a truth that is just bone-chilling. This wasn't even about the money anymore. The quest for gold had twisted him into a monster who, and this is from the records, took insane pleasure in the act of murder itself. It's just a terrifying example of how an obsession, when it's left completely unchecked, can just obliterate our humanity.
So after a story that dark, it's pretty hard to imagine any good coming out of this whole era. After centuries of this popular delusion, did anything of value actually come from the alchemist's quest?
So, was it all just a big delusion? Well, yeah. In terms of its main goal, it absolutely was. No one ever found the philosopher's stone. No one ever turned a lump of lead into gold. But that's not quite the whole story.
You see, in their thousands and thousands of failed experiments, all that heating and mixing and distilling every single substance they could get their hands on, the alchemists accidentally stumbled upon things they weren't even looking for. They discovered powerful new compounds, like nitric acid, which could dissolve metals that nothing else could touch. In a way, they were laying this really messy, totally chaotic, but absolutely essential foundation for what would become the modern science of chemistry.
And that, I think, leaves us with a really interesting final question. The dream of a magic fix, right? The promise of instant wealth, of cheating death, that dream hasn't gone away. Not at all. It just changes its shape. And it really makes you wonder, what philosopher's stone are we all chasing today? What popular delusions are we living through right now? And what's their legacy going to be?